Modes of knowing. Knowledge grounds us in what others have discovered before us and what we have learned ourselves in the past. Concepts and ideas, they give us a window into what others have learned. Our knowledge is vital in helping us orient. But when all of what we take in is filtered through our concepts and ideas, nothing new is learned, and we remain apart from, rather than connected to, the living reality of ourselves and others. When our knowledge is held loosely, summoned only when needed, but always ready to be dropped or adjusted in light of new information, then we remain in contact and the gates of perception stay open. Intuition and imagination then prove organs of perception, allowing felt contact with what concepts can never grasp. In this contact with what is alive, with what cannot be pinned down by thought, creativity and preconceptual knowing, what can be called intuition, comes to the fore. Living river, dead buckets. Creativity and intuition play a role in all masterpieces. Think of creativity and intuition as a river. In studying the work of the masters, we wish to learn from them. We may take parts of their work and make it our own. This can be likened to scooping buckets out of a river. This is a normal and important part of learning and gaining knowledge. But if all we do is scoop buckets out of the rivers of the masters, we may miss the larger context from which the masters created something new. We may miss our own living river of creativity and intuition and end up with mechanistic second-hand techniques, dead buckets of water. And now for a bird's eye view of the psychotherapeutic process. Principles grounded in theory organize our clinical thinking and inform our technique. Learning theory and principles and then memorizing techniques, decision trees, and therapeutic methods are very important ways of learning how to become an adept psychotherapist. Techniques flow from our formulations, our case conceptualization of the patient in question, and our case conceptualization is informed by principles and assumptions arising from a metapsychology or theory. Theories come from methodical observations into human functioning, consolidated and distilled into ideas that seem to have general and broad, if not universal, applicability. Will we be good psychotherapists if we think in these terms? That depends, in part, on how flexible and broad we are in our thinking. Narrow thinking. How fidelity to a model and overemphasizing technique can be problematic. The rigidity and lack of humanity. There's the risk of becoming technicians, imposing an agenda on your patient, of using a method rather than working out a relationship. What Dr. Osimo refers to as working on the other as opposed to with the other. Missing out on individuality and uniqueness. People are unique. Our patients are unique. In our zeal to use a model or technique, we may miss elements in our patients that do not fit into the model that we have learned. We may cheat ourselves out of bringing our own unique gifts into the therapeutic dyad. We may make ourselves into clones of our teachers. Myopia. We may miss the forest for the trees. A narrow focus on trying to achieve a certain outcome may put us, instead of the patient, in the driver's seat. We may base interventions off of one or two data points rather than the larger picture, the unique facets and history of the patient, or what is needed to remain authentic to the real relationship. Distance. Caught up in trying to carry out a method or a technique, we may end up modeling distancing behaviors to our patients, undermining true therapeutic contact between two minds, and then impeding the potential of the treatment. Failure to take care of the real relationship, perhaps Dr. Osimo would say. Intuition. Dr. Habib Davanlu, a true master clinician and founder of intensive short-term dynamic psychotherapy, ISTDP for short, speaks of intuitive knowing as central to how he developed his approach to psychotherapy. I have worked out standard interventions adapted to each move on the patient's part. These interventions have often been reached intuitively, and it is then only in retrospect that I have been able to describe theoretically what I have been doing. Each intervention is quite specific and usually leads to an equally specific reaction from the patient. Let's go back for a minute to the river and bucket analogy. The buckets are not the river. A former student of Dr. Davanlu described moments of intense training during the late 80s with him, where the trainees, at seeing Davanlu do something with a patient that they had never seen or heard before, would feel angry with him. Why had he not taught them this technique before? The student asked in anger. Fast forward to 2015. In a one-on-one meeting with Davanlu, where Davanlu showed his recorded therapy sessions, this former student would from time to time ask Davanlu how he knew how to intervene a given way. And in response, Davanlu would sometimes offer a rationale, but at other times simply shrug, saying, "I don't know." It was reported that a female therapist working at Salvador Minuchin's Philadelphia Child Guidance Clinic once took off her shoe and hit the father in a family that was seeing her for family therapy. Now, this unblocked the family system and it created healing. Now, others who saw the recorded sessions, now they tried the very same let's hit the father with a shoe intervention. It did not have the same results. Finding our river. If we're not conducting rigorous research, we can be less concerned about fidelity to model and more concerned with fidelity to whatever seems to help the patient the most, and with bringing who we are into the therapeutic dyad. Allow the intuitive and creative spirit in ourselves to flower, the way Dr. Davanlu did when he developed his model of psychotherapy. We can allow the techniques and principles that we have learned to operate in the background, serving the function of increasing the emotional connection to our patients rather than obscuring that connection by operating in the foreground. Enjoy the ease and relaxation that comes from not pushing an agenda or trying to drag our clients through the sequence of our models. We can de-emphasize, not discard, but de-emphasize manualized training. This sentiment, echoed here by Dr. Olsimo. I am convinced that the recipe for an indispensable part of any successful therapy, that is to say, an authentic emotional interaction between therapist and patient, cannot possibly be derived from a treatment manual, sophisticated and useful as it may be. An important lesson. Taking a bucket of water from the living river of creativity and intuition from master therapists and confusing the bucket of water with the river is a mistake. Manualized training and learning techniques are indeed very important, but if we do not go beyond that approach to learning psychotherapy, we end up with buckets of dead water and miss out on the healing, living river of our own creativity and intuition, of emotional connection with our patients that go beyond formulas, theories, and techniques. Knowledge seduces and wows in its promise for power and results. In the end, if we want real contact, we must loosen our grip on the known and step into the unknown. Mind of knowledge must serve, not master. The heart of psychotherapy is about fostering emotional intimacy. Only from vulnerability and openness comes growth and healing. To this end, the books we read are not sufficient, any more than we can follow an instruction manual for how to fall in love and expect Cupid's arrow to strike. Knowledge is vitally important, but can obscure and distance as much as it can illuminate. Knowledge serves us best in the background, as a humble servant, always ready to yield, to bend the knee for something new. Being emotionally present and attuned with ourselves and others is not a result of knowledge, but a result of suspending our knowledge and allowing for a space of not knowing, the only space where vulnerability may sprout.